Xiaoxin is a frail orphan girl whose parents got clapped by bloodsuckers right in front of her, and now she has to simp her way through a vampire-run academy just to fund her sick brother's treatment. One day, her dumbass scratches the hottest vampire prince's pretty face and she is forced to become his personal chew toy in the bite-happy world she swore she'd never touch. However, before any of this, in a world where humans and vampires coexist, the vampires have been victorious after a long-term conflict between the two races. Soon afterwards, groups of vampires strolled through streets and attacked the humans. In one of the nearby houses, Xiaoxin's parents put her and her sibling in a cupboard and asked them not to come outside in the middle of the conflict. Her mom apologized to her and told her that they must live on after shutting the door on their faces. Just then, the vampires barged inside and ruthlessly attacked Xiaoxin's parents. Through an opening, Xiaoxin saw the ruthless vampire with gleaming red eyes as her parents lay dying at their feet. In the present, Xiaoxin wakes up in her class after dreaming about the same night. One of her classmates raves to the other girls that she gave her blood to the vampire prince. She shows off her gesture, but the other girls remind her that the prince must have found her blood disgusting. Xiaoxin walks through the class, thinking that the human girls are really depraved for submitting so openly to the vampires. The teacher tells her to take some documents to the music room and she heads to the music room, thinking about the same thing over and over again. Meanwhile, in the music room, the vampire prince Roy has his fill of a human girl, but he finds the bloods taste disgusting. He casually throws the girl aside just when Xiaoxin comes across the room and spots him inside. He calls her out, but she shuts the door and runs away from the room, unable to bear the sight. Roy runs after her and jumps at her from behind. He comments that she is acting very bold by ignoring his command and she pleads with him to let her go. He thinks that she is playing a ruse to draw his interest by pretending to be disinterested, so he starts to trail his hand down her skin. She flicks his hand away, but the cocky prince of narcissism grabs it roughly and tells her to consider herself lucky since she can now brag to her friends that she was chosen by the prince. His eyes turn red, which instantly remind her of the vampire who killed her family. She yells at him to not touch her with his filthy hands and roughly pulls her hand back, causing his cheek to get scratched in the process. The scratch begins slightly bleeding, which brings Roy to his senses and he tells Xiaoxin that she has successfully provoked him now. He pulls her up to her feet and drags her to the balcony where there are groups of students gathered below. He announces to the students that Xiaoxin is now her enemy and that he won't leave her till he has had his fill with her. The vampires throughout the academy think of Xiaoxin as a naive and stupid frail girl who offended their prince. Even though vampires and humans are supposed to coexist, ever since the vampires won their war, humans have become their playing tools. Roy thinks about how much he despises humans, because they are always greedy and coward and never keep their promises. Many years ago, Roy had a blood slave called Flay who was always by his side and promised to stay with him forever. However, out of the blue, she disappeared one day and Roy looked for her everywhere. His brother Lord Lopez then told him that Flay abandoned him and warned Roy that humans and vampires can never be together forever. Once his trust was broken, he learned never to trust humans again. Presently, he watches as some human girls surround Xiaoxin and one of the girls smacks her cheek. They accuse her of seducing Roy and Xiaoxin tells them to have some dignity as humans. The girls make fun of her words and when Xiaoxin tries to run away, they pull her back, which causes her long hair to open up. Roy immediately recalls Flay, who also had long hair just like her, and looks away from the scene while the girls decide to cut Xiaoxin's hair. Roy tells himself to not get bothered since he thinks that Xiaoxin will soon come to him, begging for mercy. A butler comes to inform him that the chairman is waiting for him in the conference room and Roy turns around to leave. Xiaoxin makes a run for it, but she ends up running into some vampire boys. They surround her instantly and start to come close to her like a bunch of creeps, despite her protests. She bites one of their hands and then runs away again, with the boys behind her. The other students watch the drama unfolds and she realizes that they will only watch everything unfold without coming to save her. Just then, a girl named Mesa trips her and Xiaoxin falls down some stairs. As she falls unconscious, she tells herself that she tried her best to endure everything and then apologizes to her brother Xiaoling before everything becomes dark. Later, Roy returns from his meeting with the chairman and learns from one of his minions that Xiaoxin fell down the stairs and was taken away by Mesa and her gang. Even though he doesn't intend to step in, Mesa's interference bothers him a lot. Meanwhile, Mesa confronts Xiaoxin and calls her an ugly sheep whose ugly looks deserve such a treatment from Roy. She tells the guys to have their way with Xiaoxin and they all approach her together. They rip open her shirt, but just then, Roy appears behind them and orders them to stop. With his one command, all the boys run away and he then scolds Mesa, who also runs away, like a coward. Xiaoxin lies injured on the ground, so he bends down and licks the wound on her forehead, which heals instantly on the spot. Later, Roy brings Xiaoxin to his mansion and tells the maids to tidy her up and to put her to bed. His brother, who is also the school chairman, Lopez, asks Roy whether he has really brought the human girl, and Roy reminds him that it's none of his business. Lopez warns him not to be flamboyant and starts lecturing him endlessly about proper manners. Roy ignores all his advice and walks away from him, so Lopez tells him that he must be fascinated by the new girl since she reminds him of Flay. Roy becomes triggered on hearing Flay's name and tells Lopez to not mention Flay's name before walking away. He heads to Xiaoxin's room, where the maids outside inform him that they have put Xiaoxin to bed according to his instructions. But when he enters inside, he finds that Xiaoxin is not present and that she has escaped through the window by using the bed's covering to climb down. Once again, he feels like he has really underestimated the girl. Meanwhile, Xiaoxin runs through the forest and struggles to find an exit to flee. A bunch of crows chase after her, and at the same time, Roy senses that she is in some kind of trouble. He rushes to the forest just when the crows lunge at Xiaoxin and she stumbles down a hill to escape from them. Roy jumps after her at the last second and manages to save her by grabbing her hand. The branch which is holding him breaks and both of them fall down. However, Xiaoxin lands on top of Roy and doesn't get injured. He starts to bleed, making Xiaoxin shocked since she didn't think that vampires bleed as well. Roy tells her to get away from him, since he can lose his senses due to the blood loss, and feed on her. However, to his shock, Xiaoxin doesn't withdraw but instead offers him her blood. She cannot believe that a vampire would save her life and doesn't want to be indebted to him, due to which she offers him her blood to get even. Roy immediately jumps on the wagon and starts to clap her up. He asks her where she wants to be bitten and touches her skin up and down while she tells him to focus on the blood only. He thinks that she is playing hard to get and then bends down on her neck while Xiaoxin thinks about how she has broken her promise towards her brother. After a moment's thought, Roy doesn't drink her blood. Instead, he holds her from behind and tells her that he will do whatever he wants. He wants her to owe him, just for his amusement's sake, and she struggles against his grip. She tells him to let her go, and he informs her that she is still captured by him, even if he lets her go. He tells her that she cannot escape, and meanwhile, someone watches them from the shadows. He turns around and leaves after witnessing Roy's freaky actions. Xiaoxin thinks that she cannot let Roy push her around and she tries to leave, but he grabs her hand. He asks her whether she is really thinking of leaving, and she lies to him that she is going to find a way around since she cannot climb back. He asks her where she even intends to go, and she shuts her mouth since she doesn't want to offend his pretty little feelings anymore. He warns her that she cannot escape through the forest and that the forest looks normal through human eyes, but in fact it is surrounded by dark miasma and that normal humans cannot return from it once they enter the forest. He then asks her to follow him and leads her through the forest by hand. She becomes scared when a bird passes in the sky and he makes fun of her for being a wuss. She pulls her hand back from his grip and declares that she dislikes touching him even if she is scared. He points out that she claims to hate the vampires, but she starts trembling whenever he is touching her, which makes him think that she secretly likes the whole thing. He then tries pulling her, but she pulls herself back and trips to the ground, after which she runs away to the forest. A bunch of spirits follow her and she sees a vision of her brother Xiaoling, in which he tells her that she has been defiled by the vampires. She then falls into darkness and wakes up with a start in Roy's mansion again. It's the next morning and she discovers that all the windows have been barred, so she rushes to the door and starts pounding on it. Roy overhears all the ruckus and throws open the door. He drags her by her arm and throws her on the bed, reminding her that she should not try to escape since she willingly offered her blood to him just a day ago. She suddenly recalls that she escaped from the room last night and fell down a cliff with Roy, after which she ran away to the forest, but she doesn't remember anything after that. Roy informs her that the forest's miasma makes humans hallucinate, and then knocks them unconscious, after which they die. She begs him to let her go, but he in return asks her to become his blood slave with the threat that he will make Xiaoling his blood slave instead if she doesn't agree to his commands. He then leaves her room and orders his maids to keep an eye on her, leaving her behind crying. Meanwhile, Xiaoling leaves his house to welcome his sister, who is returning from the capital school, to meet with him. He greets his neighbors, who call Xiaoxin outstanding for attending such a prestigious school. He then heads on his way to welcome Xiaoxin, but he keeps thinking about how his sister is attending a school run by vampires in order to get a scholarship which will fund his treatment for a special heart disease he has. Even the others around him think that the noble vampires would have liked his pretty face a lot if he weren't so sick. Just then, a girl approaches him and introduces herself as Xiaoxin's classmate. She informs him that Xiaoxin is in trouble and that she has been taken away by the vampire Prince Roy. 2 days pass by and Xiaoxin refuses to eat anything in protest. The maids inform Roy about her troublesome behavior and he barges inside her bedroom to confront her. He throws away the bed covers and tells her that he won't let her go despite the hunger strike. She starts crying and then begs him to let her go even if it is for just 1 day. This piques his interest and he asks her why she wants to go for one day only. Roy's butler arrives and informs him that Xiaoxin's brother has come to pay a visit. Roy pulls Xiaoxin up and tells her that they will both meet with Xiaoling since she was dying to meet her family anyway. She thinks that Xiaoling will get the heart attack of his life if he sees her in such a state with a vampire, so she pulls her hand back. Roy quickly realizes that she doesn't want her brother to see her depraved state, so he drags her to the meeting room and pushes her behind the curtains so that she can watch the whole scene from the shadows. He instructs her to watch the meeting from behind and then takes a seat to meet her brother. Xiaoling steps inside to greet Roy and Xiaoxin starts to call him out, but Roy's butler firmly shuts her mouth up. He reminds her that she has to keep quiet on Roy's instructions and stops her from speaking out. On the other hand, Xiaoling falls down on his knees and begs Roy to let his sister go. Roy calls him a coward to his face and Xiaoling asks him to punish him in exchange for his sister. His heart condition starts acting up, causing him to start breathing faster, and Roy tells him to get up. Xiaoling insists that he is not getting up unless he agrees to let his sister go. His wussness comes to a dramatic end as his condition becomes worse and he collapses on the floor. Xiaoxin breaks free from the butler and runs to his side while Roy immediately instructs the butler to summon the best doctor in the vicinity. Soon afterwards, the doctor treats Xiaoling and tells Roy that his life was barely saved, however his condition means that he needs to be hospitalized. Roy orders his minions to arrange hospitalization for Xiaoling and thinks to himself that he only wanted to play around with Xiaoxin for a little bit without escalating the matter so much. Just then, Xiaoxin feels dizzy beside him and collapses on the floor. She wakes up afterwards, and starts calling out Xiaoling. Roy calms her down and assures her that Xiaoling is fine and has been hospitalized in the best hospital out there. She requests him to let her go to visit the hospital, but he refuses her request and reminds her that she is too weak to visit any place. He brings out a bowl of rice and asks her to eat it since she hasn't eaten anything in a while. She turns her face away from the bowl, but he remains insistent and motivates her to eat food in the pretext that she can visit the hospital once she gains her energy back. She then takes the bowl from him with hesitation, but due to her weak, frail state, the bowl starts trembling in her hands. Roy takes the bowl from her hands and then feeds her a spoonful of rice after blowing on it. She starts eating slowly, which makes him happy. Soon she visits Xiaoling in the hospital and finds him in a worried state. He refuses the food she offers him and starts whining that she had to suffer a lot in school while he could only beg a vampire for mercy. He cannot forget how vampires killed their parents and how they have to resort to vampires for mercy. Xiaoling hugs him close and tells him not to worry about her. Soon he regains his appetite and eats foods like usual. He chats with Xiaoling like normal and even jokes around with her. Roy watches their interaction from the shadows like a certified stalker and feels surprised to see her smile like a normal person. He then orders her that they should head back, and to her surprise, she joins him without a word of complaint. She tells him that she has decided that she won't resist or run away from him till she can graduate from class. She thinks to herself that she will find a way to take Xiaoling away somehow after she has graduated. Later Roy instructs his friend Xian to look for the person who tipped off Xiaoling about his sister. Xian teases him that he must have fallen for the knockoff Cinderella, but Roy ignores all his comments. The next morning, Xiaoxin returns to school and hears many comments from other schoolmates discussing how she was saved by Roy and has returned to school with his help. They throw rash remarks at her in jealousy, and two girls even corner her in the hall. One of them smacks Xiaoxin's cheeks and Xiaoxin tells them to stop, so the girls remind her that they have got a free hall pass to bully her. Xiaoxin grabs a girl's hand when she is about to slap her, and the other girl then restrains her from behind. The girls discuss that they should teach her a lesson when someone stops them from behind. The person tells them to stop playing around and then introduces himself as the disciplinary committee member Senai. The girls run away on seeing him, and Senai then takes Xiaoxin to the school infirmary to treat her wounds. He expresses his regret over not being able to protect her earlier, and Xiaoxin warns him that he will be implicated with her if he keeps helping her. He comments that humans need to help out each other, which surprises her, and even asks her to stay by his side to stop the bullying. Afterwards, they both head out together and the other students start gossiping about Xiaoxin once again. They call her a desperate loser who has seduced a disciplinary committee member after hitting on the vampire prince, and Senai tells Xiaoxin to just ignore their comments. He even prompts her to call him by his first name, and Roy observes their interaction from a window. He instantly approaches the two of them and blocks their path in front of all the students. Without any effort, he grabs Xiaoxin's hand and drags her away with him. Later he throws her into her bedroom, and when she asks him why he brought her back, he reminds her that he can do whatever he wants with his blood servant. He taunts her by calling her shameless and that she is forgetting herself just because he treated her a little good. As he is caressing her face, he notices that her cheek looks swollen, so he asks her who hit her. She feels surprised to see that Roy noticed it even though she put ice on her cheek earlier. She then reminds him that everybody targets her at school thanks to his announcement, and Roy becomes upset on hearing this. He bites down on her neck and then pulls himself up, noticing her trembling expressions. He points out teasingly that her body is more honest than her words, and she denies feeling attracted towards him. He then traces a fingertip down her face and points towards her uniform, commanding her to take it off. She tells herself that she has to bear everything for Xiaoling's sake, and seeing her hesitation, he asks her whether she wants his help. She gives up and with trembling hands, slowly starts to take off her cardigan. After taking it off, she is about to take off her shirt too, but he then approaches her from behind and asks her to stop. He warns her that he will punish her even more the next time if she is involved with another person. The next morning, Xiaoxin heads to school with Roy's words ringing her ears. Right off the bat, Senai approaches her and she turns around to escape from him, but he grabs her arm and spins her around. She tells him to keep his distance from her, and he begins to whine that she was taken away in front of his eyes, but he couldn't do anything for her. He asks her whether Roy did anything to her, and she tells him that she doesn't have anything to tell him. He comments that he cannot turn a blind eye towards her, and she asks him why he is going so far for her sake. He is about to answer her when she turns around and declares that she doesn't want to involve him any further. He then notices 2 bite marks on her neck and she runs away to avoid answering him about anything. After school, Xiaoxin returns to Roy's mansion where he cheerfully greets her and asks whether she has been obedient all day. She informs him that she didn't do anything to break their promise all day, and then walks towards him when he calls her. He pulls her on his lap and asks her whether she has the right attitude towards her master. She thinks to herself that he isn't his master, and he asks her whether she is still unwilling to accept their arrangement. As usual, he again drags her with him and takes her to the balcony where he reveals that he wants her to dance with him, since a proper blood servant should know how to please their master. They both start dancing on the balcony, and initially she steps on his feet, which makes him comment that she is clumsy. The dance resumes and she slowly starts dancing better, which makes him pleased as well. Xiaoxin recalls that her parents used to dance the same way when she was a kid, and he informs her that there is going to be a ball hosted on the weekend which he has to attend with his blood servant. He instructs her to prepare well for the dance, and she instantly starts to think that the ball will be filled with bloodthirsty monsters who will be after her. She steps away from him, feeling nauseated, and when he asks her what's wrong, she lies to him that she is not feeling well and then runs away. Xian steps forward from the shadows and points out that Roy is indulging too much in the human girl. He reminds Roy that he always went to the balls alone, and Roy explains to him that Xiaoxin will understand that only he can protect her once she attends the ball. Xian teases him that he was completely provoked by Senai earlier, and Roy ignores him once again as he leaves him to look for Xiaoxin. Meanwhile, Xiaoxin runs into the garden in panic and wonders what Roy's plan is and why he intends to take her to the ball, which will be filled by vampires. Lopez approaches and warns her that she isn't allowed to run freely outside. He looks at her closely and points out that she really resembles the previous blood servant before roughly pushing her into the fountain behind her. Lopez warns Xiaoxin that Roy is only interested in her because she resembles his childhood blood servant who was his favorite. He tells her not to have any expectations from his brother, and Xiaoxin finds this idea infuriating since she can never expect anything from vampires. Lopez keeps yapping about how Roy's blood servant ran away after betraying him, but before he can say anything further, Roy appears behind him and stops him. Roy tells him not to make such remarks behind his back in front of his blood servant, and that Xiaoxin doesn't need others to lecture her. He then orders Xiaoxin to get up and extends his hand towards her. She grabs it and gets up from the fountain, after which he leads her away. As they both head back, she wonders why Roy is being so gentle towards her and why her heart is in such a mess. Roy tells her to not run around and warns her to be careful of Lopez. As he drops her off to her room, he informs her that her dancing skills are still lacking and that she should practice in his dance hall for the next 2 days after school timings. He also instructs her to take a bath to not catch a cold and to rest before the ball. She listens to everything quietly and then heads inside her room. After she sleeps, she dreams about a stranger girl chit-chatting with some people around her. The girl resembles her in looks, and Xiaoxin calls her sister. Xiaoxin then asks her who she is, and the girl gives her a reply, but Xiaoxin fails to hear what she is saying. Xiaoxin asks her to repeat her answer, and just then, she wakes up from her dream. She wonders why she had such a dream and who the woman was. Later at school, a student informs her that she has received a phone call in the communications room. Xiaoxin heads to the communications room, wondering who is trying to get into contact with her. She then receives the call, and it turns out to be from Xiaoling's doctor, who informs her that Xiaoling's condition is seriously deteriorating and that she should immediately rush to the hospital to meet him. She instantly runs outside, but the guards at the school gate stop her. They remind her that the students can only leave the campus at the designated gates and that she cannot leave. She begs them to let her go, explaining that she has to go somewhere urgently, but they insist that she needs to have an exit permit if she wants to leave. She argues with them that all the teachers who can authorize the permit have already gone home and that the permit takes 1 day to get approved. She explains that her brother is in a critical condition, but despite her relentless requests, they do not allow her to leave. Senai appears behind her and requests the guards to let her leave on her behalf. They give him the reply that she cannot leave, and Senai then takes her to a side where he explains to her that the school's rules are notoriously secret, due to which they won't even permit a disciplinary committee member to leave the school. He informs her that a nobility badge can be used as a permit to leave the school and that Roy is bound to have such a badge. He urges her to sneak into the mansion to steal his badge, and Xiaoxin argues with him that she should try asking him for help instead. Senai argues with her that Roy won't ever lend the badge to her since nobility badges are equivalent to one's family honors, and that she won't have any other choice left once he refuses to give her the badge. Xiaoxin asks him why he is helping her out, and he reveals that he had a friend once who was bullied endlessly by the vampires and was even killed, due to which he wants to help her out now. Xiaoxin apologizes to him for making him recall such memories, and Senai explains to her that Roy must be busy making arrangements for his cocktail party, due to which he won't be too focused on her now. He thinks that she has got a golden chance right now to steal his, and Xiaoxin tells him that she will think about it. She heads to the mansion, where she comes across Roy at the gate. She approaches him, but before she can make her request, he grabs her chin and teases her that she should call him master. She realizes that Roy only considers her a toy and won't ever listen to her requests. Still, she decides to give him a chance and asks him whether she can go outside since she wants to meet with Xiaoling. He reminds her that Xiaoling is safe in the hospital and asks her why she wants to go, making her think that he doesn't care about her brother's condition. Before she can further explain Xiaoling's condition to him, the maid reminds Roy that he has to urgently go, and he tells Xiaoxin that she should obediently just practice her dance. He also tells her that she cannot leave the mansion at any cost and then leaves with the maid. Xiaoxin realizes that she has no choice but to steal the nobility badge, so she gets to work. Since all the maids are busy with their own tasks, she sneaks around and finds the key to Roy's study. She then sneaks inside the study and steals the nobility badge. Afterwards, she runs outside and finds Senai waiting for her. He asks her to let him accompany her and reasons that they can look out for each other. Soon, the two of them leave the school premises and head into the town. Senai tells Xiaoxin that some people are supposedly trailing after them. He asks her to head straight to the hospital while he offers to stay behind to deal with the people coming after them. She rushes to the hospital and storms inside Xiaoling's room, only to find him sitting peacefully in his bed. He assures her that he is alright, and Xiaoxin runs into his arms. She immediately senses that something is wrong and checks her pockets to discover that the badge is missing. She starts to panic, but when Xiaoling asks her what's wrong, she lies to him that she brought some candy for him which she lost on the way. He calls her clumsy in return, and she tells him to take care of himself before leaving him. Outside the hospital, she starts to look around to see whether she has dropped the badge somewhere, but deep inside, she senses that someone has tricked her since the call from the hospital was also a false one. Suddenly, a fancy car stops near her and Roy steps out of the car. He asks her why she is outside and who brought her. Immediately, her usually empty brain gets to work, and she thinks to herself that the matter will become even more complicated if she doesn't tell him the truth and hides the truth about his badge. She tells him that she stole his badge in order to check up on Xiaoling, and although the confession surprises him, he asks her who gave her such a bold idea, since her 2 brain cells couldn't have planned such a ruse. She doesn't answer him, so he orders his butler to start looking for his badge and to investigate the disciplinary committee member Senai. He then turns his eyes on Xiaoxin next and comments that he has to think of a way to punish her now. Soon enough, he pushes her against a tree and she asks him what he wants. He teases her that he wants to punish her and then bites her neck. After having her fill, he opens up her shirt and licks the blood down to her neck. He then grabs her wrist and bites into it as well. Xiaoxin tears up and requests him to let her go. He orders her to call him master if she really wants him to let go of her, but she doesn't call him master. He calls her a stubborn woman and reminds her that he can always cast her aside once he has drunk her dry. She starts to think about how her useless life has become even more useless after meeting Roy and how he has turned her life into a mess. She thinks that he is just playing around with her and is always hurting her or putting her in a bind without any reason. She pushes him back and reminds him that she is just a blood servant who can be cast aside by him at any time once he is tired of her. Since she doesn't want to owe him, she then asks him to let her help him in finding his badge and then falls unconscious in his arms, like a melodrama queen. Roy calls her a stubborn woman again who can never admit her wrongdoings and then puts her down. Afterwards, Xiaoxin wakes up in her bed in Roy's mansion and wonders how she got back from the outside. She asks the maid who is stationed outside her room when she comes back, and the maid reveals that she has been sleeping for 2 days now. She informs her that Roy has instructed her to prepare a meal for her whenever she wakes up and then hurries off to bring her food. Xiaoxin realizes that it's the day of the banquet and that she was supposed to go to the ball with Roy. She wonders why Roy hasn't made any moves to wake her up and decides to ask someone about the ball. She heads out on her own and comes across some maids gossiping about her. The maids wonder why Roy has chosen such a frail-looking dimwit to be his blood servant, and that he has been getting scolded by the other nobles after taking her in, and has even lost his badge at this point, all due to Xiaoxin. They think that he will be in trouble at the ball without the badge, since the entrance of the ball isn't allowed without it. Xiaoxin thinks that Roy is in trouble because of her and that she needs to do something. She rushes outside in an attempt to catch up to Roy to help him, and on the way, Xian stops his car near her. He calls her Roy's little pet and asks her whether she is planning to run away while Roy is in trouble. She tells him that she is not running away, and he offers her a ride in an attempt to help her. She asks him who he is, and he reveals that he is Roy's best friend. Xiaoxin recalls that Xian often visits Roy's mansion and believes his words. Xian also realizes that she must intend to go to the ball to look for Roy and offers her a ride again. She asks him why she should trust him, and he explains to her like a child that he can help her leave the school premises and that he also wants her to meet with Roy. She finally accepts his offer, and noticing her poor little shabby clothes, he declares that she cannot go to the ball in such a dress, so he decides to give her a makeover first. Later at night, they both ride towards the ball, and Xian explains to her that the Blood Clan Ball is a place to show off the powers of the nobles. Xiaoxin finds the whole concept very boring, and Xian explains to her once again that the ball is very important for Roy since he wants to enter the Council of Elders. In the vampire world, the Elders are the most important class of vampires after the class of Ancestors, due to which they are considered the most elite as well. Roy arrives at the ball with his friends, and the guards stop him at the gate. They ask him to show his badge, and Roy threatens to disembowel them for treating him so lightly. Other vampires take notice of this interaction and taunt Roy about losing his badge. Just then, Xian also arrives at the ball, and Xiaoxin steps out of his vehicle fully prepared in all her lush glory. The other vampires taunt Roy that he shouldn't boast about being a candidate for the Council of Elders when he doesn't even have his badge, and Roy reminds them that mid-lackeys like them should mind their own business. One vampire argues with him that he is also a lackey without his badge and asks him whether he wants him to vouch for his entry. Roy tells them all to get lost, and the other vampires leave him alone as they enter the ball without him. Roy thinks that the guy who stole his badge must have spread the tale about his badge being lost, and that he must have increased security on purpose too, since he used to get entry easily without any badge check previously. He thinks that it's a ruse for him to get kicked out of the Council of Elders elections, and just then, a vampire tells him that the Council of Elders is summoning him inside. Roy enters the Hall of the Elders and presents himself before one of the elders. The elder asks him whether he has really lost his family badge, and the other elders remind him that the badge is a symbol of status and glory of the blood family. They start throwing remarks at him that he isn't qualified to be an elder if he cannot even protect his badge, and Roy tells him that he lost his badge due to a thought-out elaborate plan. The elder tells him that he has to fend off such plots by himself to prove his competency, and Roy promises them that he has a plan up his sleeves and that he will find his badge in 24 hours, otherwise he will give up his candidate seat for the Council of Elders. Meanwhile, Xian and Xiaoxin stroll through the halls, and Xian leaves her alone to search for Roy. She finds Senai among the audience and hurries to have a word with him. She finds him on the upper floor, and he leads her to a side to talk with her. Xian finds Roy and tells him that the plan is running smoothly. He also informs him that Mesa cannot assist them in their next move due to their family relations, and that he found the perfect candidate to switch Mesa's place. Roy realizes that he is actually talking about Xiaoxin and scolds him for involving her in this matter. Xian explains to him that Xiaoxin wanted to help him out, and Roy then hurries towards the main hall to look for her. Senai takes Xiaoxin to the balcony where he introduces himself as Will, and she asks him to drop such formalities. Right off the bat, he asks her whether she came to the ball with Roy, and she informs him that she came by herself to look for the badge. He taunts Roy for being a wuss who lost his badge and tells her that Roy cannot wash the stain on his image now and will lose all prospects of being an elder. He then grabs her chin and asks her to follow him, and that he can put in some goods for Roy in exchange for her company. She roughly pushes him back as she tells him to remove his filthy hands, but he grabs her wrist again. He tells her that he can even return Roy's badge to him if she accepts him, and she struggles against his grip. Suddenly Roy arrives and kicks him back. He pulls Xiaoxin into his arms and asks her whether she is alright, making her wonder whether he is worried about her. He then becomes surprised to see her new looks and after a moment of silence, tells her that she isn't allowed to go anywhere without his permission. Hearing all the commotion, one of the elders named Elder Leonard approaches the scene and asks them what's going on. Will jumps at the opportunity and is about to blame Roy, but suddenly Roy's badge falls from his pocket. Leonard realizes that it is Roy's family badge and immediately accuses him of stealing the badge. Will cannot believe that he has been framed so openly and he tries desperately to lay the blame on someone else. He accuses Xiaoxin for planting the badge on him, but Leonard's men seize him away without listening to him. Some time ago, when Xiaoxin was coming to the ball with Xin, he showed her the family badge and told her that he found it in Will's room. She told him that Will must have a grudge against the vampires after the vampires bullied his friend to death, but Xin only laughed at her explanation. He revealed that Will was actually a vampire himself who transferred to the central region just to partake in the election for the Council of Elders, and that he was Mace's distant relative due to which they could easily run a check on him. He then asked Xiaoxin to put the badge into his pocket sneakily in order to expose his identity in front of everyone else. In the present, Will keeps yapping loudly that Xiaoxin framed him and shifted the blame on him even though she is the real culprit. Roy pulls Xiaoxin into his arms and tells him that he cannot slander his woman in front of everyone. Will taunts Roy for shielding a human despite being a vampire and declares that he isn't fit to succeed as an elder after all. Roy argues with him that he isn't capable of maintaining his honor if he cannot even protect his own blood servant. Will starts yapping for the 1000th time, so Elder Leonard orders his men to kick him out of the door and to let him go to the north since there is no need for him ever again. Leonard starts begging like an idiot to give him another chance, but Leonard only insults him in return and reminds him of his good-for-nothing worth. Will keeps whining while Leonard's guard drags him away. After he is gone, Roy asks Xiaoxin whether she is alright and she thinks about how she jumped into the world of the vampires all for the sake of Roy. Leonard then tells Roy to not be too happy since he has to do far more to gain the title of the Elder. He then walks away from them and Xin also takes his leave, saying he has something to do. Once he is gone, Roy takes Xiaoxin outside and mentions that she must be uncomfortable with a place full of vampires. Suddenly Roy becomes embarrassed and that Sundra starts explaining himself that he is only looking out for her just because she helped him out as well. He then tells her to show the result of their training and starts to dance with her. They both dance around for a while and Xiaoxin asks him whether Will came after him because he was after his seat in the council. Roy confirms her question and she asks him whether people will continue to come after him. He teases her that she seems worried for her master, and she explains that she doesn't want to cause even more trouble for him just like before. She trips on her feet but he grabs her before she can fall down. He then grabs her face and kisses her on the mouth. Meanwhile, Mesa watches everything from the shadows and starts crying. Xiaoxin senses that someone is watching them and she points out to Roy that they can get in trouble if someone catches them. He teases her about the kiss and assures her that the ball is almost overdue to which no one will catch them. The Prince of Narcissism thinks that she is asking for more smooches, so he grabs her hand and declares that they can go home to continue their dramatics. He then drags her towards his car, so that they can head home quickly. Roy's brother watches everything from a window and Leonard, who is sitting behind him, points out to him that he seems more interested in Roy than their meeting. Lopez excuses himself that he was just watching Roy leave the ball and Leonard teases him that he really cares for his brother. Lopez declares that he cares for Roy a lot and Leonard tells him that he only looked into Roy's matter on his request, otherwise he would never pay attention to such a trivial matter. Lopez reminds him that an elder's testimony was important for the incident and that Roy only turned to him for help because he is aware of Lopez's close relationship with him as an elder. Leonard then points out to him that Roy seems to think very highly of his new pet of a blood servant, which can affect his evaluation for the Council of Elders, and Leonard assures him that Roy will have his fill soon enough. Lopez then asks him how he will repay him since he has helped his brother get rid of a competitor, and Lopez approaches him slowly. He leans down on him and asks him what he would like him to do in exchange. Meanwhile, on the other side, Roy and Xiaoxin arrive at his mansion and Roy pushes her into her bed. He gets on top of her and she wonders whether he is going to suck her blood again. When he leans down on her, she turns her head away and tells him to not do such things. He only finds her hesitation even more cute and in return, tells her that her resistance is useless, just like her. He then kisses her on the mouth and soon enough she stops resisting. He bends down on her neck next and calls her a good girl for submitting so quickly. The next morning, Xiaoxin wakes up and finds Roy sitting beside her, staring at her. She starts blushing rapidly and then asks him what he is doing in her bed. Roy reminds her that she is lying in his bed instead and makes her recall the events of last night. She recalls how they kissed and Roy points out that she soon fell after that even though he wanted to do more interesting things. She becomes embarrassed and starts to get out of the bed, in the pretext of getting ready for school, but he hugs her from behind to stop her. He tells her that she cannot escape easily from him and then calls her a weak person who keeps fainting every other day. He takes her to the dining room where he presents a whole bunch of desserts and snacks for her to eat. He gives her an earful that she always faints when he has more than 2 bites and reminds her that she fainted for 2 days the last time he bit her too hard. Of course she becomes embarrassed to hear such things and starts to make excuses that she cannot eat too much. He insists that she has to eat everything and then extends a pastry towards her to eat. She tells him that she can eat it by herself, but he doesn't listen to her and keeps the pastry near her mouth. She then takes a bite, like a good kid, and gets some cream on her mouth, so Roy easily brushes it off and asks her to eat it again from his fingers. She becomes embarrassed again and asks him whether it's really necessary to do such things. He keeps up the dramatics, so she finally gives in and licks the cream off his finger. He then tells her that she has to eat everything, after which they will go to school together, making her wonder why he is doing so much for her sake. Soon the two of them head to school together and walk through the hallways side by side. The other students start discussing how Xiaoxin has changed sides since she was getting kicked around just days ago. They also discuss how she was invited to the Noble Blood Clan ball, which means that they cannot bully her anymore due to her high position. Roy drops her off at her class and informs her that he will come to pick her up after her classes are over. She thinks to herself that she doesn't want him to come but doesn't say anything to his face. She heads inside the class, wondering how she can get out of this new mess. Her classmates surround her and one of them offers her some pastries that she made. Another girl invites Xiaoxin to her club and both girls start arguing with one another about Xiaoxin's company. Xiaoxin doesn't listen to any of them and quietly walks away from them, knowing well that such kind of girls just go with the flow. Later, she thinks to herself whether she can really live life in such a way and becomes the kind of person she used to despise the most. Roy appears behind her and asks her why she has come to the balcony since he had told her that he would come to pick her up at her class. She argues with him that she can go back by herself, but he only gets more provoked by such statements and corners her in a side. He reminds her that her resistance always ends up backfiring on her, and then grabs her hand. He tells her that he has to give her something and then, for the 100th time, drags her back to the mansion, where he asks the maids whether they have followed his instructions. The maids inform him that everything is done on his orders and he then hands Xiaoxin over to his maids. Afterwards, one of the maids informs him about the success of his idea and he heads to meet with Xiaoxin, who is dressed in a brand new outfit. He presents her a huge wardrobe of her own, which is filled to the brim with fancy new clothes, and tells her that she has to stop wearing her shabby old uniform and wear good clothes, as per her new status of being his blood servant. She wonders whether he really took notice of her dire clothes and then tells him that she doesn't need the wardrobe, which shocks him. She explains to him that she only agreed to become his blood servant in exchange for Xiaoling's treatment. However, she does not need anything else from him. He argues with her that she should try becoming more obedient if she has agreed to become his blood servant, and then bites her ear as he teases her that she should try becoming more cute as well. She pushes him away, which provokes him even more, and he pushes her against a wall to corner her. He reminds her that all her resistance is futile and then bends down on her neck but stops at the last second. He comments that he will spare her till she can restore her health, but then proceeds to kiss on her mouth. After smooching her for an eternity, he declares that they will kiss once every single day and that she has to take an initiative the next day, otherwise he will have to think of creating ways of punishing her. She is baffled to hear this, but Roy doesn't pay attention to her protests and reminds her to not wear her shabby clothes the next day before walking away. Later at night, when she is in her bedroom, she wonders why Roy is acting so gently towards her and why he isn't acting cold just like he used to be in the beginning. Suddenly someone enters her room and takes a seat near her. It turns out to be Lopez, who notices her new dress and comments that Roy is treating her like a princess. She recognizes the voice and quickly gets up to face him. Lopez confronts Xiaoxin and reminds her that he already warned her about Ro, but she never listened to him. He believes that Xiaoxin is just a substitute for Roy in place of his previous blood servant, but Xiaoxin tries arguing with him that his opinion is wrong. Lopez reminds her that she had a different expression when she was being kissed by Roy earlier and that she will be cast aside soon. He turns around to leave and Xiaoxin informs him that she doesn't mind being cast aside like a used snack because she doesn't care about Roy. Lopez doesn't believe her and tells her to be more firm with her feelings, with a warning that they won't be having a simple chat when they meet the next time. The next day, Roy finds Xiaoxin in her room and asks her to put on a coat while she keeps standing in a daze. When she doesn't answer him, he jokes with her whether she wants to get punished for being sick afterwards. He picks up her coat and is about to put it on her when she asks him whether she really resembles the previous blood servant Flay a lot. The coat slips from his hands and he lunges at her in anger. He yells at her for mentioning Flay's name and then storms out of the room. After he is gone, Xiaoxin realizes that Flay was really close to Xiaoxin's heart and that she must have misunderstood his feelings for her all this time. Later she heads to school on her own and the other students whisper how Roy has left her all alone and is too busy for her. She takes her class and thinks about how Roy has never been angry at her before whenever she did something wrong, but this time he was furious. The next 2 days pass by in a whirl in which Roy seems to have disappeared from the face of Earth as he does not appear in front of Xiaoxin. She wonders whether her trial with the self-proclaimed Sigma Prince is over. Meanwhile, the other girls keep gossiping around her that Xiaoxin must have fallen out of favor with Roy and that she deserves such treatment. Just then, Roy passes by the class, which gains the attention of all the girls. Xiaoxin runs outside after hearing all the ruckus, but Roy passes by her without even looking at her. She doesn't know what to say to him or how to stop him. In her mind, she wants to question him about Flay again and to ask him whether she is really a substitute, but realizes that she cannot question him since she is confused about her own feelings as well. She recalls Lopez's words again and remains quiet, convinced that Roy doesn't truly care about her. On the other side, Roy turns around the corner and stops momentarily in frustration. The other girls watch all the dramatics happening and start gossiping how Roy ignored his new pet and how Xiaoxin is an arrogant coward who deserves such an attitude. Later that day, Xian asks Roy what's wrong with him and why he hasn't been lately running after his little plaything. Roy answers him that he is fine, and Xian points out that he wasn't even this gloomy when he lost the badge. He makes a guess that Roy must be behaving so moodily because of Xiaoxin and teases him that he must have fallen for her. Roy becomes triggered like a little sissy and yells at him to stop making such boring jokes, before storming away. The next day, Xiaoxin receives a letter from Roy telling her to meet with him at the school fountain outside the school. After class is over, she heads to the fountain by herself and some of her classmates approach her. They ask her what she is doing there and roughly grab her hand, which makes her drop the letter. Xiaoxin questions them whether they were behind the letter and they make fun of her for believing in the letter and for being a hopeless fool. Xiaoxin turns around and argues with them that it's none of their business and that they should focus on doing some other meaningful things. The girls remind her that the only meaningful thing to do is to attach themselves to the vampires, which makes Xiaoxin look down on them for thinking like brainless idiots. The girls become triggered and start hitting her face and slapping her. One of them grabs her roughly and locks a handcuff on Xiaoxin's hands, which she attaches to the school grill. The girls tell her to cleanse her head in the rain and then walk away. Xiaoxin thinks about the good moments she spent with Roy and prays for the rain to cleanse such memories too. Someone approaches her and she calls out Roy's name, thinking he must have come for her. It turns out to be Mesa instead, who kicks her shoulder back and arrogantly asks Xiaoxin how she has the audacity to call Roy's name in her pathetic state. She starts bullying her verbally, reminding her that no one cares about her. After yapping for an eternity, she declares that she will also have a taste of Roy's favorite dish and then sinks her teeth into Xiaoxin's neck. She doesn't stop drinking her blood and soon Xiaoxin starts to lose consciousness, as Mesa sucks her dry. Someone appears behind Mesa and throws a silver dagger at her back. Mesa turns around to attack back, but the person quickly strikes her down and pulls out the dagger. The person approaches Xiaoxin next, but just then, Roy rushes to her side and kicks the attacker back. The attacker runs away while Roy notices Xiaoxin's dire state. He yells at her to not die and to stay with him just as Xiaoxin slips into oblivion. Xiaoxin gets treatment in Roy's mansion and soon starts to recover. Roy remains seated by her side all the time and Xian comes to tell him that according to the doctor, Xiaoxin is out of danger. He prompts him to rest for a bit and Roy asks him in return about Mesa's condition. Xian reveals that Mesa is also doing fine and that she admitted to drinking Xiaoxin's blood, however someone else attacked her from behind at the last moment. Roy points out that the attacker used a silver dagger, even though the country's silverware weapons were all destroyed a long time ago and a yearly check happens to make sure no silver is present in the country. Xian reminds him that there was a blood hunter clash 10 years ago orchestrated by vampire hunters, due to which maybe some silver slipped into the market. Roy decides to leave the matter to the Council of Elders rather than worrying about it himself, and Xian comments that the attacker's appearance was a good thing for them since it saved Xiaoxin's life. He then heads back to rest, leaving Roy behind with Xiaoxin. Soon enough, Xiaoxin wakes up and finds Roy sleeping beside her, holding her hand. The Master of Cringe wakes up as well and bombards her with questions to confirm whether she is alright and the status of her health. Xiaoxin withdraws her hand and she cannot believe that he is actually beside her, so she starts to cry. Roy thinks that she is hurting somewhere, so he turns around to call the doctor and she pulls his shirt to stop him. She tells him that she is alright, but she keeps crying, which makes Roy question whether she is crying because she is happy to see him after a long time. She asks him why he came to save her when he could have easily avoided her and not cared for her. He hugs her close and reminds her that she is his personal blood servant. He then teases her that he couldn't even drink her blood for so many days while Mesa had all the fill, but Xiaoxin only pushes him away. She tells him to stop acting gentle towards her and that lately she has started to care for him even though she used to hate him so much. He asks her whether she likes him now and she starts whining that she cannot like vampires. He then kisses her on the mouth and tells her that she must have feelings for him. Finally she admits that she likes him and that it doesn't matter since she is a substitute only. He leans in again and assures her that she isn't a substitute but an important part of his life, before kissing her again. As she falls back on the bed, she thinks about how she is not supposed to like Roy or care about him, but still, she has romantic feelings towards him. Meanwhile, on the other side, the attacker takes a bath and then steps out to meet a woman named Madame Claret who tells him that she was waiting for him. He approaches her on the bed while she tells him that he will make his wish come true to enter Roy's family campus if he listens to her. The next morning, Xian reports to Roy that Xiaoxin is feeling much better and that he left her alone when she laid down to sleep. They both enter her room and find her standing near the window. Xian quickly rushes to her side and asks her why she is getting up since Roy will settle a score with him for lying to him. Roy becomes jealous like a little kid and tells him to stop whispering in front of him. He then asks Xiaoxin why she is getting up since she is not fully recovered, and she explains that she wants to get some fresh air after being cooped up for so many days. Roy agrees to take her outside and tells Xian to not follow them as he leads Xiaoxin out the door. He takes her to a pond first where he shows her some swans and Xiaoxin notices some kids playing around, which remind her of Shaoling. Of course the jealousy kind becomes possessive again and asks her to stop thinking of other men when she is with him. Afterwards, he takes her to the market to have some food. A beggar kid runs into them and asks them for some food, without realizing that Roy is a vampire. Xiaoxin notices his mistake and to save him, she grabs Roy's hand and drags him to a restaurant to distract him. She asks him whether they can eat food at the restaurant and he teases her that she has held his hand for the first time, which in return makes her embarrassed and pulls her hand back. Roy then turns around to talk to the waiter and Xiaoxin notices that he is pointing towards the beggar kid in the street, which makes her really nervous. The waiter approaches the kid in the street and gives him some food and money on Roy's behalf, which makes Xiaoxin shocked since she never expected him to help out a human kid. He orders one single drink for the both of them, in order to tease her and then motivates her to drink it. Since she is thirsty, she takes the bait and starts drinking it, while Roy starts to drink from the other side. Later, they both head back home and Xian meets them at the gate. He informs Roy that he was waiting for him and that he should head to meet the Council of Elders who have a task for him. Roy tells Xiaoxin to rest and leaves her alone with Xian. After he is gone, the two of them head inside and Xian teases her that she should loosen up about her feelings for Roy. He advises her to not care about racial issues and reveals that he is a half-human and a half-vampire, due to which he was bullied a lot as a kid but only Roy treated him kindly. He then asks her whether she would like to know about Roy's past. Xiaoxin recalls all the hints she has received from others about Roy's past and Xian comments that it's best for her to hear such things from Roy himself. Xian then bids her goodbye and Xiaoxin heads to sleep in her room. She keeps thinking that she wants to know about Roy's past and that she wants to hear it from his own mouth rather than from someone else. She then starts wondering whether she has really fallen in love with him, and just then Roy appears on the bed behind her. She instantly becomes embarrassed and asks him about his task with the Council of Elders, so he flirts with her so that he comes back quickly to get to his plaything. He then hugs her from behind and asks her to praise him for rushing back so quickly. She starts laughing at his childish behavior and even calls her a kid to his face. He teases her that he will punish her, but since she has laughed for the first time in his company, he will forgive her for now. He then flicks her forehead and calls her a frail-looking bean sprout, after which he kisses her. He teases her that they made a pact to kiss each day, due to which she should fulfill her promise by making up for all the lost kisses. She then leans towards him for the first time and kisses her back. As both the desperate wusses make out, Xiaoxin thinks about how she still doesn't understand Roy fully. She thinks that the person she met in the beginning is very different from the current version of Roy and wonders which one is the real Roy. She then realizes that despite all the differences, she still doesn't want to let go of his hands. After a few days, Xiaoxin is sitting and eating breakfast with Xian when she makes a comment that Roy seems really busy these days. Xian teases her that she is always thinking about Roy, and she defends herself that she only wanted to get out because she has many things to do. She explains that she wants to head back to school to give her exams in order to get credits. Once she is able to convince him, she heads back to school, but Xian follows after her. He tells her that Roy has instructed him to look after her, and she mentions once again how Roy is busy these days, which makes him comment that Roy is busy with the blood hunter case. She asks him what a blood hunter is, but Xian suddenly tells her to forget whatever he said. The other girls notice Xian's presence and start gossiping that Xiaoxin must have replaced the royal prince with his attendant. Xian also overhears their comments and confronts two of the girls by directly asking them about their opinion. The girls panic and quickly rush away on being confronted. Xiaoxin apologizes to Xian for implicating him, and Xian comments that Roy probably didn't want her to go to school to avoid such a situation. He then prompts her to go and give her exams, so she rushes off to the examination hall. Xian meanwhile takes a stroll around the campus and then decides to meet with Roy to report to him. Xiaoxin gives her examination and thinks about how she needs to maintain her scholarship for Xiaoling's sake. She also decides to head to meet Xiaoling on the next upcoming open day and tells herself that she will repay Roy for all the medical expenses he is bearing. Suddenly one of her classmates calls the teacher and accuses Xiaoxin of cheating on her paper by hiding a cheating sheet in her drawers. The teacher approaches Xiaoxin and finds a cheating sheet in her drawers. Xiaoxin defends herself that she has always had good grades and that she is being framed, but the teacher ignores her pleas and calls her a shameless cheater. The other students tell the teacher that Xiaoxin must have cheated on her other exams as well, but just then Roy appears in the class and snatches the cheating sheet from the teacher's hand. He decides to end the bullying matter once and for all and drags Xiaoxin outside towards the balcony. He then announces to all the students that Xiaoxin is his personal blood servant and that no one can touch her. Xiaoxin thinks back to the moment when Roy did the same thing to her and students started bullying her, and how he is doing the opposite just to protect her. He also advises her to transfer to his class, so that no one can bother her anymore, but she reminds him that it's against the regulations. He laughs out that such regulations are meant to be broken. The students watch their interaction from below, including the jealous Mesa as well as the attacker who has enrolled himself in the school. At the same time, a group of vampires head close to the capital. Thanks for watching the video till the end. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure to like and subscribe the channel for more anime recaps.